خود غریبی در جهان چون شمس نیست، شمس جان باقی کش امس نیست. شمس در خارج اگر هست فرد، میتوان هم مثل او تصویر کرد. The eternal sun, there's nothing quite so strange. Their sole sun has no past, it doesn't change. There's only one sun there before your eyes, but similar suns you can still visualize. چون حدیث روی شمس الدین رسید، شمس چهارم آسمان سر در کشید. شرح این هجران و این خون جگر، این زمان بگذار تا وقت دگر. When news about my Shamsuddin first came, the heaven's highest sun withdrew through shame. Describing separation's torture then is best postponed till we speak again. Mawlana's disciple, Husamuddin, pushes him to speak more about Shams, which Mawlana refuses. فتنه و آشوب و خونریزی مجوی، بیش از این از شمس تبریزی مگوی. Seek no more discord and shedding of my blood. Say no more of Shams of Tabriz. Hussam offers a comeback and says the Sufi must be an ibn al-Waqt, a child of the now, a child of the present moment. Mawlana concedes, but under the caveat that it is better to speak of the secrets of one's beloved through the tales of others. گفتمش پوشیده خوشتر سر یار، خود تو در ضمن حکایت گوش دار. خوشتران باشد که سر دلبران، گفته آید در حدیث دیگران. The loved one's secret best kept veiled, I said. Listen to it in ecstasy instead. The lover's secret that has been kept concealed is best through the tales of other loves revealed. Mawlana now returns to the narrative by stating that from this point on, his own story with Shams, would be told through the stories of others. The Masnavi can thus be read now as a now direct, now indirect attempt to talk about separation and union from both the divine source and the human beloveds like Shams, who have provided a mirror-like presence for the divine. Let's take a look at this only through the lens of the first daftar, the first volume of the Masnavi. What is the overall narrative arch of the first volume? We begin with the story of the Nabi, and we end with the story of Imam Ali. We begin with the present state of humanity, because the Prophet reminded us, speak to people at the level of their understanding. And our understanding, our maqam right now is brokenness, of being cut off and separated from God, or at least experiencing it, that. And we end with the story of Imam Ali, of the perfect human being, the one who's like a mountain, cool, and not like a piece of straw, kah, to be blown hither and thither by the winds of one's passion, by the story of Ali, who puts his sword back when the enemy spits on his blessed face. This is the progression not just of the Masnavi, but also of the human spirit cooked in the fires of divine love. This is the hidden story of the fragrance of Shams, illuminating the story of the Masnavi while being told through the tales of others. خوشتران باشد که سر دلبران گفته آید در حدیث دیگران. In the encounter with our own Shams, we too can aspire to move from being spiritually raw and crying out in the agony of separation to being cooked and reaching, inshallah, the maqam of Ali. We too are to aspire to be enlightened by the sun. Now the second part is about Mawlana in Shams's writing, in Shams's maqalat. Not surprisingly, Shams also reflects on his meeting with Mawlana and what Mawlana means to him. Our best source for this is again the maqalat. Shams indicates that he had been inclined to meet Mawlana from the very beginning, but Mawlana was not yet prepared for receiving his secret. He goes on to say that his task was to rescue Mawlana, whom he calls that sweetheart servant of God, from the unworthy folks around him that he feared would cause Mawlana harm. As we mentioned before lunch, his first encounter with Mawlana probably took place 15 or 16 years before the famous meeting. From Shams, we get intriguing insights into Mawlana's life before the encounter with Shams, including that Mawlana had been like a pharaoh filled with pride over his knowledge, and that he took pride in his command of fiqh, of the usul of fiqh, and the rulings of law. From Shams's perspective, these bodies of knowledge do not belong to the way of God and the way of the prophets, and can actually veil the path. Fiqh pushanande rah ast. He recognized that Mawlana was in a model of peer and murid, sheikh and disciple relationship, whereas he wanted something more for Mawlana. He wanted something more from Mawlana. He says, I wanted a path beyond being a peer and a murid. Rahi varaya piri o muridi ast. What was this path? The path of theophanic encounter, of mirroring. Shams, known for his eccentric mannerisms and temperament, also strove for a unique relationship when he says, the one who finds a way to companionship with me bears a sign. That sign is that the companionship of others loses all appeal for him. It loses its flavor. It actually becomes impossible for him to have sohbat, friendship, companionship with them. One aspect of this has been that Shams prevented Mawlana from studying the works of previous Sufi masters, even Mawlana's own father. He asks Mawlana to not read or quote from Sultan al-Ulama, Baha'u'llah's book, the Ma'arif. Aflaki states that Mawlana obliged Shams as long as Shams was alive. It's well known that Mawlana's disciples did not take well to this move away from the established tradition, and many were jealous of the intensity of the time that Mawlana and Shams spent together. As difficult as it is to hear this, it is entirely possible that Mawlana's own son might have had a hand in Shams's murder. Equally telling is the statement of Sultan Balad, who compares Shams's effect on Mawlana to nothing less than sorcery. Who is this man who's carried our sheikh away from us like a piece of straw being carried away on a stream? He has veiled him from the whole of humanity. There's no sign of his soul anymore. We no longer see his face. Is Shams a magician? Otherwise, what magic, what incantation did he use to ensnare our sheikh? We have always heard about how Mawlana was transformed through meeting Shams. True enough. However, we have not sufficiently focused on how Shams was also transformed through meeting Mawlana. Sufis often talk about the need to rise above connection to union and separation. Earlier Sufis of the path of love, Mazhab Ishq, taught that so long as one yearns for union with the beloved, then one is in love with union and not with the beloved. Shams seems to have reached this higher maqam. Separation from Mawlana brings me no pain. Union with him brings me no joy. The best indication of this is to think about the way that Shams speaks about Mawlana after their sohbat. Shams here uses the metaphor of mirroring. He says, this Mawlana is like moonlight. Sights cannot behold the sunlight of my being unless it is reflected through the moon. Sights cannot bear the radiance and luminosity of sunlight. The moon cannot reach the sun unless the sun reaches the moon. In another place, he indicates the reciprocal nature of the relationship.